Should we read all the novels? I mean, from chapter 1 to the last chapter?
No, no. I will tell you today. Maybe the chapters we are going to read. I will tell you that. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Yeah, any question, anything else? Okay, so last time we stopped at the beginning of the novel, because I gave you last time the introduction about it, the main ideas and comments, and you know, the main general outline of the story and the themes and so on. You know, today I would like to give you as many evidence as possible, as much, I should say, as much evidence as I can from the text to support the ideas that we were saying about the novel being a racist, or if you like, you know, a racial, really important text about the rejection of the slavery system and all this carry on about really you know, slaves and the terrible if we like distinction or segregation or classification of society, marginalization, and so on of really society in general. Of course, with the main big section of it, of course, which is, you know, the Black community. Today, if you look at the American society, you find nearly more than 1/3 of the society is of the African origin, or Mexican, or Hispanic, or, you know, native origin people. So the problem is, I think, is still you know, this thing itself, which is really the racist element about it. I think it will never die, because you'll find it still now. Now, the author tells us at the beginning of the novel, as you can see, in the explanatory note, he gave us a little note saying this, as I said, in an ironical way, to say that, you know, he said this you know, piece of writing, or this narrative, I'm writing this narrative for you for no motive, or there's no, if you like, a moral lesson in it, or there is no, if you like, again, I think he said this in an ironical way. I think it's meant to be ironical, because, you know, all narratives must have a motive. All narratives, you know, have a moral in them, and all narratives, you know, have plots. If not, then it will be really a bad, if you like, novel, for example. So that's why I'm saying here at the title page of the novel, when he says this person is attempting to find a motive in this narrative will be prosecuted, and persons attempting to find a moral in it will be banished. Persons attempting to find a plot in it will be shot. I mean, some of this, I said, I took this myself against Mark Twain, to say that maybe he realized at some point, that this novel has a weak plot, And I think I said that to you many times because of the many digressions and unnecessary padding. I thought there was a lot of really padding in it and, you know, stuffing sort of elaboration and in order to maybe inflate it to become like a novel. I don't know. I mean, this is my feeling. Again, he gave another note. He said this book, in this book, a number of dialects are used. And he said, especially he said the Missouri Negro dialect, the extremist form of the background's southwestern dialect, the ordinary Pike Country dialect, and 4 modified varieties of this last. Now, luckily, I don't know these dialects myself. I don't know them. I've never spoken. I've hardly myself, because I got my education in England. I have no idea really about all these dialects, but you know, I can guess how, and they are, if you like, how they are spoken and so on. But of course, you can see it's clearly, you know, mainly here, the point I want you to know is the vernacular sort of American accent from the people of the, you know, South and people of the North, at least the language of the poor or the language of the blacks, the language of the slaves, and so on. You know, this idea, you know, the novelist did it in a very good way to highlight this idea, to say that this is how my, you know, my novel is written. And I think he did it to show the, as I said, the regionalism, to highlight this idea of realism and regionalism, to say that this region, this area of the American society, this is the way they speak and this is how they speak. And to show, as I said, this reality about it, to say the honest, truthful sort of reflection, if you like, of what the American society, the working class, the you know, the black community society, or even the rich society who were living in those areas in the South or in the southern parts of America, like in Georgia today, or Virginia, or the Mississippi area, and Missouri, and all these places, okay? And he said that, if you like, the shadings have not been done in a haphazard fashion or by grassroots, but painstakingly and with the trustworthy guidance and support of personal familiarity with these several forms of speech. So he's saying here that I have used this, he said, through my own experience as a traveler and, of course, somebody who lived there in real life, you know, Mark Twain himself. And he said, I'm a nation for the reason that without it, many readers would suppose that all of these characters are trying to talk alike and not succeeding. You know, he's saying, I'm doing this and to show you that my characters, this is how they speak and this is how I represent them. Now, in chapter 1, and I will, as I said, I will start reading and to show you how you read the novel, if you like, later on, how if you read any novel, how you study a novel, how you reflect on a novel, how you read a novel when you are writing an article or an essay or criticism or something. Here you can see immediately that from the first line, you can see, you know, immediately you can tell from the speaker, you see who is the narrator. You don't know about me without you have read a book by the name of The Adventures of Tom Sawyer. So here immediately you can assume who's speaking here. So somebody is speaking to us. You, who? Really, he's talking to us, the readers. Maybe I will share with you because you have the text with you now. Boys and girls, you have the text with you?
Yes,
Yes, we do.
Yes, doctor.
Yeah, good. And I highlighted this with you with the yellow color, and I think you have it there. And maybe I will share it with you for a few moments because I don't want to lose connection because of that. But you can see immediately here, you see somebody speaking to you. You say you, meaning us, really, the readers. Now, real life. Omani read. You don't know me. Me, who? Me, the speaker. So here we say immediately, we assume that this speaker is the narrator. And when he says me, then he's going to use his first person voice later on, because he will say I when he's saying me. So this is not a third person narrator. So here we have a first person narrator who is going to say I. And we know from studying fiction, and I think, I don't know if you were with me in Introduction to Literature 1 or Introduction to when we talk about narrators, we have two main kinds of narrators. Third person narrator who says he or she or they, and first person narrator who says I. And here I think this is the one here, first person narrator, and you know, this I could be an observer and could be a character at the same time. So a narrator and character. And I think here what we have in this novel is a narrator character, Huckleberry Finn, because the title of the story is Huckleberry Finn. And he said, you don't know me without you have read a book by the name of The Adventures of Tom Sawyer, because he's saying you should have read that book because it's also, I was there myself, and Tom Sawyer is my friend. So it's like a series of, or a serial, or a sequence of novels. So immediately here when we read, we say that. He said, but that ain't no matter. But that ain't no matter. Again, immediately you say, you know, you see that the speaker here is using colloquial English, because in real English we don't say ain't. You know, you say this is not, or his is not the matter. It doesn't matter. You know, but he's saying ain't. This is American accent and American English, really. British people never say ain't. They don't say ain't. Never. You know, this is only American way of speaking. And he said that book was made by me. So here again you say, what do you mean? So here we can see what we call the self-conscious narration. The self-conscious narration, or as we say here, narration within narration. So here, the same book here we are reading is by Mark Twain. So here, Mark Twain, using a narrator who was drawing our attention to another text by Mark Twain. And he's saying Mark Twain, as if the writer here, or the speaker here, or the narrator here is from another novel by another writer. So really, this is what we call self-conscious narration. Self-conscious narration, a narration about narration, you know, about your own narration in another context, in another novel. And I think he did it here, as I said, of course, in a comical way, in a funny way, to immediately draw our attention to his game of narration. And he said, and he told the truth mainly. Who? You meaning Mark Twain. In that book, told the truth mainly. Well, again, we ask the question, is fiction truth? Is fiction reality? We say no. No. But you see, again, in novels here, and the writer really wants to tell us that, you know, and I think this is the illusion about fiction. Because writers always want to create them of writing, to say, well, I'm telling you the truth, to believe him and to follow what he's saying. And in fact, you know, all writers in a way succeed in doing this, because at some point we think that this is really reality. Again, he said, there was things Again, notice, of course, the English here. There was things. Notice here the grammar. This is wrong. Grammar, grammatically, this is not correct. He should say there were things, not there was things. Okay? So you will see this novel is full of grammatical errors by all the characters, including the narrator, because the narrator here is a young boy, a character himself. Therefore, all of them speak irregular English, not just irregular, I should say, ungrammatical English. So this is a very bad text for you to emulate as a good text for grammar. But you see, Twain did this on purpose. As I said, he did it on purpose to say that this is how my characters speak, and this is how society speak at that time, and these people, this is the way they speak. They don't care about grammar. This is the idea. Okay? So really, this is the point here I'm trying to really to tell you. And I think this is quite interesting to see that. And I think this is really, you will find this in all the novel is absolutely full of mistakes everywhere, grammatical mistakes. As I said, this is intentional, done intentionally, to say that this is how this is how the people speak, and no problem. Really, this is the idea that the writer wants to say. So don't worry about this. Sorry?
Maybe he is trying to show the level of education and the level of class of the society. He is.
Oh yes, of course. There are many ways. I'm not saying here. Wait. I agree with you. I'm not saying that that all blacks speak in this way. Educated and not educated. Remember, this is a young boy who's 13, and the other characters also in the same age, and the characters here, if you like, working class, and it's a form of rejecting. I mean, for example, looking at Booker Washington, the example we got last time, he is a very, very strong English speaker. I mean, the language-wise, because he was educated, but look at the way when he was a boy, for example, like how he spoke, or how all the workers in the plantation spoke, how his mother speaks, and all the communities speak. This is the idea. And I think Mark Twain did this in a very deliberate way to show you how people in this, society really speak. Now, this is the I'm showing. I'm trying to tell you. So to be careful when you read, you will see a lot, hundreds and thousands of grammatical mistakes, and you will smile, say, "Oh, this is wrong." So there was things which he stretched, but mainly he told the truth. He's still telling us about Mark Twain. Again, this is what I mean by self-conscious narration. That's nothing. That is nothing. I never seen anybody but lied one time or another without it was Aunt Polly or the widow Mary. Again, this is ungrammatical. When you say I never seen, you should say I have never seen. I have never seen anybody but lied one time or another. Remember when he says now, he says I, and this I, as I said, is Huckleberry Finn, who is only about 13 years old. So, and now he's immediately speaking in his you know, first-person voice to tell us what he thinks. He's saying Mark Twain told the truth. He told the truth, and he said, well, that's not important. He said, everybody tells lies. He said, I never seen anybody but lie, meaning all people tell lies at one time. And he said, without it was Aunt Polly or the widow or maybe Mary. You know, he's saying, everyone I know, even Mary, even Aunt Polly, even anyone. Aunt Polly, Tom's Aunt Polly, she is, and Mary, and the widow Douglas is all told. Look at this, is all told. You know, instead of saying is or have all, is all told, allowed, about, in. Or if you like here, you know, again, either you say have all told lies or are all told about, they are being spoken about. Again, you know, here you have to read the sentence and you have to reformulate it in the English way, in the correct English way. So you have to be patient when you read this to see, you know, what exactly the writer here is saying. Is all told about in that book, which is mostly a true book, with some stretches, as I said before. If I to go back to my to you ladies and gentlemen, girls, if I ask you, if I get this passage in the exam and I say comment, Khulud, Tariq, Maram, Uthman, Mar, etc. Who else? I'm reading names that I see there. What do you think?
What do you mean, Doctor?
Good. What do you mean? Yeah, absolutely. If I give you this passage in the exam, I say comment on the following passage, and I say comment means to talk about it in every sense, structurally, thematically, narratologically, a kind of voice, the kind of language. You have to talk about all of it, you know, as I have just done myself, you know, exactly as I have done myself. You know, you have to look at every sentence, every word, and, you know, you have to see why this, you know, as I have just been saying to you, now I'm nearly half an hour. I've been talking about it for half an hour, isn't it? So you have to say it in this way. Really, you have to say it in this way. You have to talk about the narrator. You have to talk about the language, the kind of language, the kind of narrator, what kind of narrator, who is this narrator, why he is speaking like this, and to whom is he speaking, and why did he mention Mark Twain, and why he is saying the truth, and what truth, and why not grammatical, and why this English is like that, and so on. And this will give you an image, give you everything, an idea about the whole novel, and will tell you about the reasons why the novelist used this kind of style. You know, the reasons, of course, as I said, is to criticize the whole idea of the class differentiation and the class distinction, at least between the poor and the rich, and the blacks and the whites, you know, as embodied by Huck and by Tom and by Jim the slave, and etc. And again, to talk about, you know, all these narratives, as I said. Do you understand? Hello?
Yes, we understand.
In the exam next week, our first test, maybe next week or the week after, we are in week 5. Next week we will have maybe at the end of next week or the beginning of week 7, we will have our first test, and in the exam, I'm going to give you a quotation like this, and I will say comment. Okay? So you have to be careful how to comment. And when I say comment, means discuss, analyze everything about this text. The language, the narrative voice, the structure, the grammar, the sentences, the type of sentences, why this is done like that, what reasons, what ideas, who are these characters, why this can, etc. So you have really to think of all these elements when I say comment. Yeah, Zahra, you want to say something?
I'm not sure if
you are
I
going
don't
to say, yeah?
I don't think I do understand what how I will write my assignment or my essay in the test. So should I include all the themes?
What our term paper or what?
No. I mean on the test. Should I include all the
On the
themes,
test, if
or should I focus on one theme?
No, you should focus on what is on the passage. You know, if this, are you talking about the passage or the essay in the exam?
Yes.
Which one, the essay or the quotation?
The quotation.
In the quotation, you focus what is in the quotation. You focus on the quotation itself, what is in it. You mention the general idea from outside, because I say connect what is in this quotation in relation to the context of the novel, to see how this quotation is telling us something more about the novel. Meaning you have to locate, you have to contextualize, to locate this text, this little quotation you have in relation to the context of the whole novel, in relation to the whole novel itself. You know, this is what I mean.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, this is how you should do it. You have to, as I say, to contextualize. Okay, I will show you more examples of that. I will show you, because that's why I want to read with you here carefully, because I want to teach you really how to read novels. So now, you know, we get the idea about the narrator immediately. Notice here, now the way that the book winds up is this. You see, so here he's telling us, even from this, he said, I'm going to tell you about my story. You know, so notice the funny thing here, that the narrator or the novel is telling us indirectly through the voice of the narrator is telling us about the plot of the whole novel. Whereas in fiction we are not told directly this. He's saying the way that the book, which book means this book. I mean, normally in narrative, we don't have narrators telling us directly how the novel is structured. Notice he said, Tom and me, notice, Tom and me found the money that the robbers hid in the cave, and it made us rich. And you see, so again, this is what I said, the self-conscious narration about narration. Because now he brought us back to the old text, which is The Adventures of Tom Sawyer, because originally that's the title here. In fact, I should have underlined it, because in the novel, originally it's not underlined. So that's why I did not underline underline it. I think it should be underlined. The Adventures of Tom Sawyer. He's talking about that book. Okay, so he said in that book, because Huckleberry Finn and Tom, they were also in that book, because the title called Tom Sawyer. And he's saying, I'm going to tell you how we finished that book, how it was finished. He said, Tom and me. Normally, again, in English, we don't say Tom and me. We say Tom and I. You know, we say that. Of course, this is in spoken English, and this is a narrative. It's okay. Tom and me found the money that the robbers hid in the cave. Now, remember, he's now on the final episodes in the novel before, which is The Adventures of Tom Sawyer. Again, it made us rich. We got $6,000 a piece, all gold. It was an awful sight of money when it was piled up. Well, Judge Thatcher, he took it and put it out at interest. Notice again the funny English here. Judge Thatcher, he. You know, he's repeating the subject twice. Why is he saying, well, Judge Thatcher, he took it? Why is he saying he? You know, repeating. Either you say Judge Thatcher took it, or he took it. Why saying Judge Thatcher, he? Again, this is part of the language spoken by this young boy, Huck. So you see, again, this is how you do the commentary. You comment, I'm saying, on the text. So now, you know, he's at the end of that novel, which is called The Adventures of Tom Sawyer. In other words, he's bridging us to this story now, to the novel that we have with us now, and how he's connecting this paragraph, connecting this to the previous novel. He said, this money is put by the Judge Thatcher. And he said, he put it for us at interest in the bank. And it fetched us $1 a day a piece all the year round, more than a body could tell what to do with. You know, again, the way he said a body could tell, you know, meaning a man or anyone could tell. Again, the usual childish, youngish, maybe boyish language he's using here when he's saying a body could tell. The widow Douglas, she took me for her son. Notice again the repetition. The widow Douglas, she. Again, we don't really need the word she. In the same way we say Judge Thatcher, he. The widow Douglas, she. Why? We don't need that. But again, as I said, this is how people spoke. This is how people spoke. And this is what we say, you know, which is about the in maybe irregular or ungrammatical English. And allowed, again, notice, allowed she would civilize me. And notice the way he writes civilize. Of course, he wrote it in this way because, you know, again, to show that this is, you know, spelling is wrong to write it like this. But why he write it like this, you know, if you like why he writes it like this, of course, you know, she would civilize me. I mean, the word, we pronounce it in the same way, civilize, but he wrote it with S instead of C, you know. Again, I think is to say, again, this is maybe to suggest the vernacular. Even in writing, they would write it this way. Again, this is to show the neglect about grammar. Again, so notice him immediately moving to tell us about himself. Because remember, this novel, I must tell you, and I think I mentioned last time, this novel is more about Huckleberry Finn, about the white boy, more about the white society, more about white society, more than blacks, more than, you know, the slaves. In fact, it's about 70%, maybe 70 to 70% of the novel is about the white community, not the blacks. And I think this is, you know, the reason here he's introducing us immediately to himself. So he said how he was taken by the widow Douglas to adopt him as her son. Why? Because he's going to tell us. And he says, she allowed she, maybe, again, the funny English to say, allowed she would civilize, as if to say she wanted to civilize me. She was asked to civilize me, to teach me, to adopt me as her son. It was rough living in the house all the time, considering how dismal, regular and decent the widow was in all her ways. So he's talking about this widow, you know, a widow. You know, widow means a married wife whose husband has died. And for a man, we say widower, which is the opposite sometimes. Sometimes in English, most of the thing, if you want to derive the female from a male word, you know, normally we derive the female from male, not male from female. Here, the word widow is the armala, or armal, which is, we say in Arabic, armala. How do you say? Do you say the same word in Arabic in Oman?
Yes.
Hello? Do you use the same Omani phrase?
Yes, we use the same.
Do you have another word for it?
Yes, doctor.
No. Sorry?
Yes, doctor.
What is it?
Tarika.
Sorry?
Some of them said Tarika, which means
Oh, Tarika. Oh, interesting.
It's a bad.
Oh, what a shame. Tarika. Yeah, it's a shame, really. Yeah, I mean, it's emotional, more emotional than Yeah. Yeah, I like this. I've never heard of this word. You see, I'm learning from you. I like that. Yeah, so yes, I think this is interesting here to talk about his aunt, if you like, if we can call her, you know, an aunt for him. So this woman is a widower. She's a widow who is taking care of him as her own son, and he does not like it really, as we shall see. And so when I couldn't stand it no longer, I lit out. Again, notice here, I couldn't stand it no longer. Again, this is American accent. We don't say it like this in English. And again, I lit out. You know, again, this is a very funny phrase. Lit out means run away. You know, to lit means to fire, to start a fire. You know, and again, really, again, very even funny English and funny verb, to lit out. Really, again, to say to run away. Again, this is colloquial, vernacular, you know, American accent or American English. I don't know. I've never heard it in England. I've never heard people saying lit out. I lit out means ran away. Okay, so he tells us more when he says, I got into my old rags and my sugar hog's head again. Again, notice really is very funny. You know, he said old rags means, you know, he used the word, you know, this terrible, the way he's dressed up, you know, as to say, you know, he's you know, careless, looked at, who doesn't care about things. And instead of saying clothes, he said rags, means rough, really rough looking. As I said to you maybe before, he reminds me of young Rip Van Winkle. Really reminds me of Rip Van Winkle, with whom we have seen last term. Old rags and my sugar-headed, sorry, my sugar hog's head again. Again, the exact meaning of Huck's head. Again, this is very funny, as if to say my crazy head, my wild head. And even here, really to say is like my pig's head. It's like a pig, pig, an animal. And to say, my stupid, but notice the funny, he said sugar Huck's head again. As if to say my head, which is full of imagination and wild, adventurous thing. Free and satisfied. So he said, I ran away and I adopted my own way of life. I'm happy with what I am. Even if I'm crazy like a pig, I'm wild like an animal. I don't care. I'm happy with it. I'm free. And he's saying satisfied. But Tom Sawyer, he hunted me up. Again, notice he always uses this. He uses the verb twice. Sorry, the subject twice. Tom Sawyer, and then he said he. Tom Sawyer, he hunted me up and said he was going to start a band of robbers. And I might join if I go back to the widow and be respectable. So I went back. So you see, slowly he's telling us about his own life, how he, is adopted by this widow, his relationship to her. He likes her, but he doesn't really hate her in a way, but he doesn't like this kind of life, maybe, because he doesn't, he said, he said she's decent. Notice, decent the widow was, she was decent and he liked her. And again, he said how dismal, regular, and decent. So this shows that he really likes her. So he didn't run away because he hates her, because he hates the whole thing about his life. So that's why he wanted to run away. And now he said, now he met again Tom Sawyer, again in the same way, and now they wanted to formulate another band of robbers. He said, again, notice this is the childish, gangish, like a gang. They want to formulate or to form a gang of robbers. Well, this is really, again, terrible. And it's a boyish, childish behavior, really wild behavior. And he said to him, okay, we will make this band, but not now. You should go back to your widow and stay with her for a while, and then I will tell you when we start this band of being robbers. And now, he said, I went back. So immediately here again, we say that this is, spoken directly, step by step. The narrator is telling us about his life, about his friend Tom, and about the widow, and about his life and the way he lives, whether he is happy or whether, he has nothing against the widow, but he doesn't like the way he lives, meaning the surroundings, the context he lives in. He is not happy with it. He wants to be free. He doesn't like this idea of being civilized or educated. He doesn't like it because this is not his type. If you like, again, this paragraph tells us more and more about the novel and the kind of novel we will have. The next paragraph, he goes on in the same way. The widow, she cried over me. You see, again, repeating the same phrase, the same repetition. The widow, she, the widow, she. I want you to really pay attention to this, ladies and gentlemen, today. I'm reading this for you like, giving a class in stylistics. It's really like stylistics, and maybe later on you will study stylistics. Really, this is like a stylistic study or analysis, or like a discourse analysis course, because it's very important to see how this language is structured and is made. As I said, it has social implication, ideological implication, racial implications, societal education. It's like political, societal, socio-political implications. Really socio-political implications. Do you understand? Tariq?
Doctor, I have a question, please.
Yeah, yes.
If the widow wants to civilize him, why she's treating him as this way?
Oh, she's she's like his mother. Sometimes your mother can be tough, at her children, isn't it?
Yes.
The mother, the widow is his, somebody asking, doctor, is the widow his mother? No, the widow is not his mother. The widow is acting like his mother. And when you are a teacher, when you are a mother, you have to be tough to educate your children. Correct? The widow is not treating him badly, by the way, but she's teaching him and she's showing him maybe difficult time because he is a wild child. He does not want to learn. Kids at school sometimes, do you get punished when you were kids at school?
Yes, sure.
This is it. Why do you get punished? Because you don't do your job. Because you want to be taught. Really, the widow here is not tough. I mean, she's not really wicked. She's very kind-hearted. He said she is very kind and she's decent. But he is the wild boy. He does not like education. He like learning. He is lazy. He is wild. He is like Reb Van Winkle. He's lazy.
Doctor, can we say that because he's lazy, he's writing in a bad grammar?
Well, I like that. Yeah, Iman. Yeah, very
Maybe.
good, Iman. Yeah, no. I will not say that. He's writing this whether he was educated or not educated. Remember, a boy of 13, whether he's not yet educated enough to speak in correct grammar. It's here at this age is nothing to do with his education or class. Remember, he's a white boy. A white boy. Yes, his father is a horrible father. His father is a drunkard, terrible father. He's a bad father. He's abandoned by father, and he lost his mother, and in a way, to do with the whole social. I said that's why I said socio-political, social, sociological. Really, I'm saying that's why the whole thing is to do with society as such, the whole of question of society, not just because he's not educated. Maybe this is part of it because he's young anyway. Okay, so this is how you really should do it. That's why, he told him to go back, said, I would go back to the widow and be respectable. He himself should be respectable, because the widow Douglas is a very respectable woman who is regular and very sad because she's a widow and she's a decent woman and she's giving him really good education. She's teaching him religion. She's teaching him Christianity. She's teaching him language. And she's teaching him grammar and teach all kinds of school way, the way he thinks you learn. But you see, he is not happy with learning because he's a wild boy. Really, that's the reason. Again, he said, notice, the widow, she cried over me. You see, she cried over me and called me a poor lost lamb. A poor lost lamb. Look at this expression. النعجة المفقودة, النعجة الضائعة. You know, she's calling him, you know, الخروف الضائع. So really this expression here, it means that this woman really is exactly like a mother. She is a mother to him. And he said, she cried over me. This is the Christian kind of, you know, really Christ-like figure. Christ-like she figure. Or the she Christ-looking figure crying over her society to make them good. And he said, you know, you are like a lost child, like, you know, like the lost, in the, remember again, I gave you last, not you, I gave you maybe the parable about the lost son. Do you remember? Did I teach you Introduction to Literature 1? Anybody did this with me? Introduction to Literature 1.
You
The lost son. Yeah, I know. Oh yes, absolutely. I'm sorry. Yes. Yeah, yeah, American survey, no education people. Well, you have missed that. Well, anyway, this is the idea about you know, the question and the feeling of when somebody is a wild person, somebody would say, come here, son, you are like a lost son, and I want to bring you back to reality and to life. So here sometimes she really looked at me like that. So here, to answer your question, she as a bad mother, no. A difficult bad widow, no. She was not tough or difficult to him at all. She was very human, and she called me a lot of other names too, but she never meant to harm by it. She never meant no harm. Again, notice the two negatives. She never meant no harm. Again, this is funny English. Never and no. Two negatives. This is very colloquial American English. Yeah, and especially American black American English. They say they use two negatives like that. You know, she never meant no harm. Again, she put me in them. She put me in them new clothes again. Notice again, repeating the object twice. In them new clothes and them. Again, you know, if you really want to look at the language here, you spend time and time and time. And I think this is important because what literature, why do you study literature, for God's sake? Why do we read novels? Because really we enrich our power of English. Our power of English, isn't it? I think so. And that's why really here I'm trying to draw your attention to this, because it's very important to see all this question here of how we read and understand the novel. She put me in them new clothes again, and I couldn't do nothing. Look again at the double negatives. Could not and nothing. I could not do nothing. Instead of saying I could not do anything. And you know, again, this is typical colloquial American accent, typical colloquial American, black American language, or I should say vernacular. Could not do nothing but sweat and sweat. You know, sweat and sweat, meaning he was sweating because the clothes that he was wearing, to him, you know, it was, you know, very terrible. He doesn't like them. So he was sweating all the time. Sweat and sweat, and feel all cramped up, you know, as if he was tied like, you know, imprisoned. So that's why he didn't like this way of life himself. That's why he wants to run away. When you notice, Well, then the old thing commenced again. Notice, the widow rang a bell for supper. Again, notice the old thing commenced again. He said, this, the word thing here, the old thing, you know, either to say thing, he means, sorry, the widow, or could mean the people around him, or could meaning what was going on all the time, the events being repeated all the time. Commenced again means repeated again and again and again and again. So he's telling us what was going on around him all the time. The window rang a bell for supper, and you had to come into time. You know, again we say you as if he's speaking to us and narrating the story. Said, when she rang the bell, or for supper or for breakfast, you have to come, because this is part of the education. You have to take your breakfast at a certain time, your dinner at a certain time, and supper at a certain time. And when he's saying you know, he's telling us this as if to say, you know, to detach himself a little bit far away from the narrative, to tell us about his story, maybe to understand his situation. Again, when you got to the table, you couldn't go right to eating, and you had to wait for the widow to tuck her head and grumble a little over the victuals, though there wasn't really anything the matter with them. Again, notice here he's using the word you. He's talking to us directly, as if to say, you know, the way this woman was conducting these dinners, you know, was amazing. She said, you can't start eating, you have to wait. And the old, this widow, she said, she will put her head like this, and she will say her prayers. You know, she will say her prayers for the food that you have in front of you. And, you know, sometimes we say here in Arabic, sometimes in our cultural examples, sometimes we say, you know, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, and thinks about, you know, the food that we are getting, etc., etc. And sometimes many people and many families, especially if you all sit together with your parents, children, and grandparents, sometimes, you know, the older people will say something like a form of little prayers or little saying blessings, you know, for the food that we have in front of us, and so on. You know, thanking God and heavens for supplying this food and so on. You know, again, he's mocking and being unhappy about it. So that's why you couldn't go right to eating, but you had to wait for the widow to tuck down her head and grumble. Notice you said grumble, as if mumble, or something like, you know, as if you say tamtama, you know, to stutter or to stammer or to mumble, you know, grumble, mumble, etc. You know, this is to say something which is not understandable. This is what we say, grumbling or mumbling, right? Or stuttering, or, you know, again, you know, a little over the victuals or victuals, sorry, which means the food that you have in front of you. Though, or victuals, sometimes some English people say victuals, really victuals. Even they don't say victuals, it's really victuals. Sometimes it's pronounced. Though there weren't really anything the matter with them. Again, notice here, weren't. He wants to say wasn't. Why we don't say weren't, you know, either were not or was not, but no, were not. You know, there's, again, this is funny English. That's nothing, only everything was cooked by itself in a barrel of odds and ends. It's different. You know, again, you know, to summarize the whole idea, say the whole thing was cooked in a very funny way. He said, a barrel of odds and ends, you know, as if to say, what a strange collection or combination of food. But anyway, it was different, or it's it's different. Get mixed up. You know, the way things is cooked. I think maybe I will send you later on. I will send you a little video on WhatsApp. I received that video, and I think I love the way this woman there, the way she cooked, or the way she made this dish, which is very, very natural. And I'm sure some Omani people who live in villages maybe still do this, because I think this is a very natural, absolutely organic, natural way of cooking. And I love this way of cooking, and I sometimes do the same thing myself. Here, I do it myself really in the same way. I'll send you this on WhatsApp. It's because it's a video, a little video WhatsApp on WhatsApp, which is to some extent, it's some extent funny, but this is how the man here, when he said a barrel of odds and ends, you know, as if to say, what a funny combination of food, you know, all strange way of mixing up. And he said the juice kind of swaps around and the things go better. Really, it's funny, absolutely funny. He's doing this. After supper, she got out her book and learned me about Moses and bulrushers. Again, notice the word learned me. You know, we don't say learn me. You know, we say teach me. You know, we say learner when you learn, but teacher when you teach. I teach you and you learn from me, but I don't learn you. You understand? And of course, again, many people still in fact, I've heard this in Scotland, because I was in Scotland. I did my PhD in Scotland. And some Scottish people say the same, they use it in the same way. You know, they say, learn me, you know, means teach me, you know? And I think this is, again, it's to do with education and maybe class and maybe society and maybe the way, you know, people speak. And it's, again, it's to do with the dialect. Again, about Moses, meaning about to, you know, to religion, you know, and Nabi Isa, Musa alayhi salam. And of course, you know, as I said, this is, you know, part of the education, which is to do with religious, all kinds of religious ideas. Again, and he said, I was in a sweat to find out all about him. Again, you know, he said, I was really meaning either I was not happy, or I don't like it, or I was frightened, or I was terrified by this, what was going on between Moses and the bulrushers, or whatever, all these Israelites, and so on, and the Pharaoh, and all that. The way really he's referring to this, either he means he doesn't like the way, or he doesn't like even the whole idea of being educated or being the religious figure. And he said, and by and by, she let it out that Moses had been dead a considerable time. He said, after some time, as if to say, I can't really tell you how long we went into this, and she wanted to teach me about Moses, but then I got the idea, only one idea, that Moses was dead very long time ago. This is the only thing he knows. This is the only thing he memorized, that Moses was dead long time ago. And then he said, I didn't care no more about him. Again, notice this funny double negatives. I did not care, you know, I didn't care no more about him, because I don't take no stock in dead people. Again, notice here, I don't take no stock. Again, notice here, used very funny, childish, you know, really
as we say, maybe farmer's language. Farmer's language. No stock in dead people means I don't care. I don't know, maybe you say here, if you say about shahma and lahma, really, or I say, to me, all these people are nothing. To me, they don't do anything. They are not shahm or lahm. To me, they are just, bones. They mean nothing. Because I don't take no stock in dead people. I have no respect. I don't care about dead people. Well, well, well. Isn't it? Do you understand here what I'm saying? Hello?
Yes.
So really, you can see
Yes.
how I'm deeply going into the text to analyze everything about the boy and about his education, about his background, about society, about people, about everything he's saying. Mainly, you can see I'm focusing on language, because this text is very important for us to study the style, the textual evidence, the style, because I think deliberately, Mark Twain way, because he wants to teach us this message about the discourse thing and the stylistic thing about it. And I think that's why I'm teaching this course, or at least I wanted you to really, I'm highlighting this idea here. Maybe other teachers would not do that in the same way, I don't know. But I think this is my style, and I think this is more useful and more elaborate, and I think we get the idea in a better way. I'll read the last paragraph, and I will finish today. As you can see, I have not done one page, the whole lecture, one page. Pretty soon, I wanted to smoke, and I asked the widow to let me. You see, you can say, come on, boy, you're only 13 and you wanted to smoke. You are horrible. You're a bad boy. No boys of this age would be allowed to smoke, isn't it? Smoking is bad. I mean, smoking even is bad and badder, if you like, for older people, let alone for young people. So this to tell us again his wild behavior, his childish behavior, if you like, gang style behavior, or if you like, or band kind of style behavior, which needs, I think, a behavior which needs taming and education. He said, I wanted to smoke. And I asked the widow to let me. You see, he is audacious enough. He is audacious enough. He is impudent enough to ask her. Of course, she would not. He said, she would not. But she would not. He said it was a mean practice and wasn't clean, and I must try to not do it anymore. So notice she's telling him, no, this is wrong. You should not do it. This is a bad practice. And when she says mean means very bad, very ugly practice. And wasn't clean, meaning smoking was not clean. It will kill you. It will poison your liver and your lungs. And she said, I must try to not do it anymore. Again, really, we don't say it like this. I must try not to do it. You don't say try to not. Some students do the same mistake. Try to not. We don't do it like this way. We say try not to do it. Try not to do it. This is the correct English. If you do it like this, normally I mark it as wrong in grammar. Again, this is really to show his, English. Again,
That the way with some people. They get down on a thing when they don't know nothing about it.
so that's the idea again. Really, I want you, when you, please, ladies and gentlemen, please, in the exam, I'm going to ask you, I'll give you a passage, and you have to do it in the same way as I'm doing it. You have to comment on every word and every sentence, and to show me the correct and why it's wrong, okay? And to say about all these double negatives and why he's using these double negatives. I said it's to do with his class and, disrespect for grammar and for the vernacular reason, which is the social class reason. So he said, I'm sorry, I can't stop it because, and notice here the funny thing, he's only 13. He's only 13, he said, I can't stop it. For God's sake, how long have you been smoking? How long have you been smoking so you can't stop? Come on. You're only a young boy, a child even, a child of 13. He said, they get down on a thing when they don't know nothing about it. Means they are used to something and they, well, this is really terrible and this is really ironical. Here she was bothering about Moses. Again, she was bothering, meaning she was always bothering, or she was bothering, meaning always bothering, all the time bothering. Notice here you say bothering, this is very funny English, we don't say it. Here she was bothering, Moses, which was no kin to her. Again, notice, no kin to her, meaning Moses, what kin? He's not related to her. Kin means her own relation. You say, come on. And no use to anybody. He said, why do you care about Moses? Nobody, he's dead, and why do he has no use to us. Being gone, he said, well, he's dead, you see. Yet finding a power of fault with me for doing a thing that had some good in it. And she took snuff too. Of course, that was all right because she done it herself. So here he is accusing her that she is snuffing a little bit. So she's not smoking, but snuffing. To snuff as if, to take something like, some people instead of smoking, they smell it. They smell tobacco instead of smoking it. Do you know that? Some people do, funny. In European societies, in many societies, they don't smoke it, they just smell it a little bit, which is really, it's like smelling drugs, really. It's terrible. But you see, this is it. Again, in this section here, really, he's telling us about all the social ills and social problems in society. And I hope, ladies and gentlemen, you get the idea behind all this, what I'm saying to you today. And I think that's enough for this. Next time, I'll try to be quicker, but I will, as I said, I will hopefully I will be maybe faster in reading this. I don't know why today my system is not. Yeah, it's good. Yeah, it's working very good. Yeah, I have one person missing. No, I have I have two people missing. I don't know. I will check. I will check that in a minute.
All right. Any question? Anything, ladies and gentlemen? As I said, try to read as many with me, because later on I will show you, you know, how many chapters. But don't worry, it's not many chapters. Maybe only about 5 or 6 or 7 chapters, and that's it. Don't think I'm going to give you the whole novel. Okay?